When you're on your road bike, the majority of your effort goes through just pushing through the wind, and the sharper you can make the front end of your bike, the faster you'll go. We've seen a number of companies come out with aero bikes where they have a nice, sleek aero handlebar that's very slippery, saves you a lot of watts. The question is, what compromise is there in ergonomics? We're here at the GST wind tunnel with JP of Swiss Side Wheels to test how a stock aero bar with no handlebar tape compares to the same bar wrapped the way many riders, including pro riders, do for comfort. And so how are we going to determine how much speed will be lost or gained by wrapping the aero bars?
Yeah, well, today in the wind tunnel, what we have here underneath the bike is a balance system where we can very, very accurately, to within tenths of a gram, measure what the drag force is on the bike. And through that, we can calculate with the wind speed the power. So we can say, if we wrap the handlebar here, we're losing 2, 3, 4 watts. And then it's quite easy then for people to quantify, how much of a loss that is. The whole cockpit area, through the testing we've done, we see is a very, very important area for the aerodynamic drag, and where actually a lot of performance is. But it's also a big compromise, because exactly like you said, it's a compromise between aerodynamics and ergonomics. So if we put a round bar cockpit on this, we could easily lose 7, 8 watts straight up. So it's actually going to be a very interesting test today to wrap this aero handlebar, which is already, say, it still considers ergonomics quite a lot, but it's definitely not a round bar handlebar. So it'll be very interesting to wrap it and see what sort of a difference we'll measure here.
So 6 to 8 watts if you went to a round handlebar, that's like a 10% change in the complete bicycle, so it's worth looking at.
You have to consider, of course, with a rider on, the total drag with rider is a lot higher, but of course, what you drag around with you on the bike is your base drag level that you can't change. So if you're saving 6 or 7 or 8 watts on the bike, it's 6 or 7 or 8 watt saving that every rider carries with them. So yeah, it is important. Here in this tunnel, we have the great advantage to be able to test dynamically all the way through the yaw range, so from -20 through 0 all the way to +20. But at the test speed, we test at 45 kilometers an hour. Now, a lot of people will say, 45 is way too fast, that's not representative for me. But actually, the reason we test at 45 kilometers an hour is the power increases with respect to velocity to the power of 3. So basically, the faster we test, the much bigger the differences that we can measure, and the much more precisely we can measure in the wind tunnel. The good news is we can calculate down to 30 kilometers an hour. We can also test here at 30 kilometers an hour, and we don't see any speed effects on these type of bikes. So it's a relevant way of testing.
Great, let's get this big fan going. Okay, JP, so we tested 3 different setups. We tested the stock setup. At your suggestion, we tested with the base bar totally bare. And then we tested the third way with handlebar tape wrapped all the way to the stem. What does the science say?
Yeah, the science was very clear. Removing the bar tape along that top part of the handlebar was an improvement, 0.7 watts at 45 kilometers an hour. And then adding the bar tape then back where it was, but then continuing it all the way across to the center of the bar brought again a 0.7 watt loss. So the difference between, say, the best aero configuration with no bar tape across the top to, let's say, the more comfortable but worse aero configuration with bar tape all the way across was 1.4 watts in total.
And the Canyon Aero bar is fairly conservative in terms of aero road bars that are out there. Could you talk about, just generalize on how a deeper bar might fare, like one with a longer cross-section top?
With regards to the development that we do for brands, we've been developing also in this cockpit area, and we see that these base bars, or the handlebar itself and the profiles, are very sensitive. So you see other brands like Cervelo, like Argon, are going a lot more extreme with their handlebar concept. They're going really extreme aero, and we know that there are watts to be gained there. Canyon, on the other hand, from what we see with what they're doing, they're definitely developing their handlebar to be aerodynamic, but they're also not neglecting the ergonomic side. And that's the big compromise of this development. Do you go minimum watts, aerodynamics? Do you go for comfort and keep it ergonomic and try and optimize the aerodynamics around that? Because of course the risk is, just like the purpose of your test today, if the pro rider or the hobby athlete in the end wraps their bar tape all the way across because they want it to be more comfortable, then you've defeated the purpose of the development of that particular bar.
So what's your takeaway? How far up do you wrap your handlebar tape?
Well, actually, personally, since I've discovered that there's about a 30-watt difference between the upper bar position and the lower bar position, I try not to ride on the upper bar position at all anymore. So personally, I don't put any bar tape across the top at all anymore.
Now, of course, this is the perspective of a former F1 guy who's all into the science. A lazy person like me who's all about the comfort will probably wrap the handlebar just a little bit more and try to just keep my head down when it gets up to a high speed. Thanks so much for the test, JP. That was good stuff.
Yeah, pleasure. Thanks very much.